6 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. Everybody please stand for pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
You want to do that, or really, you want me to do that?
Let me go out.
Okay.
Let's see, Commissioner, Layton? Here. Commissioner Carberry? Here. Commissioner Irons?
Here.
Commissioner Barisi, I believe he's excused.
Excused,
Commissioner Jones?
absent.
Absent. Commissioner Connell?
Here.
Commissioner, and then Commissioner, Tenek.
Here.
Has everybody had a chance to review the January 16 and March 2025 minutes?
Bless you.
Well,
I'm not sure why we put January back on.
To amend the minutes, I believe in the, for some reason, when I uploaded the minutes, the roll call wasn't there, and also the call to order time.
Oh, okay.
You can see that. So I went ahead and put in the minutes for January as well, and also the amended.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I see that now. Okay,
We're trying to figure out how to clean it up and reflect that information. We figured it's probably best to just,
put them both in.
Yeah.
I see the differences now. Okay, thank you. So they did all this work while I was on vacation, which means I know I have really competent staff, but it's like, I don't know why they did it. So, anyway, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve the amended meetings from January 16th, 2025 as presented. I second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Layton?
Yes.
Commissioner Carberry?
Yes.
Commissioner Irons?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner, Tenek?
Yes.
And do we have a motion for March 20th?
I move to approve the minutes of March 20th, 2025 planning commission meeting as presented.
I'll second it. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Layton?
Yes.
Commissioner Carberry?
Yes.
Commissioner Irons?
Yes.
Commissioner, Connell?
Connell?
Connell, sorry. Commissioner Tenek?
Yes.
Just for my benefit, who was the motion in the second?
I was the second.
You were the
She was
second?
the motion.
I was
Jamie.
on the first one.
Okay,
I was the second on the first and the first on the second.
second. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. I'm gonna open public hearing or the public hearing on major modification review, LND 25-000001 is called to order. Unity Partners, owner and applicant, the subject property is described as tax lot 6600 of Assessor's Map 4 North 25 East, 17 CD, and is zoned residential manufactured home sub-district. This request is to approve a major modification. Criteria are found in the Boardman Development Code, Chapter 4.6, modifications to approved plans and conditions of approval, approval criteria, and provisions within Chapter 3, design standards. It is being processed as a Type 3 decision. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff report, public testimony in the following order. The applicant, any testimony in support of the application, any testimony opposing the application, any neutral testimony, and the applicant's rebuttal if there is any. Then when we close the public testimony, after the record is closed for testimony, No other testimony will be heard from anyone unless the planning commission has a specific question. The planning commission may ask questions of staff, after which the planning commission will discuss the matter and make a decision. The planning commission may make a final decision tonight, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain in the future. If the matter is continued, this will be the only notice of that time and date you will receive. Testimony. If you wish to speak, please fill out a testimony form and submit it to the planner. I will recognize those people wishing to speak. Any questions should be addressed through me. Please state both your name and address for the record when you come to the podium. As the hearing is being recorded, please keep testimony concise and to the point. Testimony should be on the action under consideration and address the substantive criteria. The criteria that apply to the decisions are listed in the staff report. Testimony on other issues will be rejected and not be considered by the planning commission. Failure to raise an issue in sufficient detail will allow the planning commission and the parties the ability to respond to the issue. Prohibits an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Similarly, failure to raise constitutional or other issues regarding any conditions of approval in sufficient detail to allow the planning commission to respond to the issue prohibits a lawsuit in circuit court on that basis. Now, I ask the members of the planning commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain from the hearing. Hearing none, does anyone in the audience wish to challenge a planning commissioner's impartiality? Hearing none, the planning official will now present the staff report.
So a couple years ago, you guys approved, although I think we just figured out that that might have been previous to Commissioner Carberry's time on the commission, so time does fly by when you're having fun. We did approve a manufactured home park, in fronts along Coonsey. Over time, the developer decided he wanted to increase the density of the park, and he's come back to ask for that. The only portion of the previous decision that is before you tonight is that question about the increase of density. Because there is an increase in dwelling units, it triggers the requirement for a major modification. If you're increasing dwelling units, you don't get a choice for a minor modification, it goes straight to a major modification, and it goes through the same review process that the first one did. So there's not a lot for me to say, because it's a really narrow kind of view of what we're looking at. The building official, I would say one of the things that's probably become much more clear to us, since we approved this originally, about 2 years ago, is that the building official actually has a larger role in this process than I think we recognized or he recognized. And as we were kind of getting to this point of, okay, we've got a design process and now we've got this major modification. Our building official, our building inspector, and our principal planner and our planner one all went to a building official training. And actually, manufactured home parks was like a big part of the agenda. So they all came back with a whole lot more information. It was very timely, and I think it's been very helpful for us to kind of understand what planning's role is and then better understand what the building official's role is. He gets to make a lot of the decision and we're kind of out of it, and that's okay with me. So it was kind of interesting to kind of see that input on that from that building codes division perspective, because building codes, when you know, 99.5% of my interactions with building codes has been about buildings. I mean, in 25 years of planning, I think this is the first new manufactured home park that I've really reviewed for approval. So it's been a big learning curve for all of us. But the training was timely and it's really helped us understand what those requirements are. So I just want to give you a little bit of background about kind of what's been happening. So the applicant has submitted their preliminary design to the building official. The building official has reviewed it preliminarily and has given it a preliminary approval. But it won't be a final approval until we go back and do this piece. When they chose to increase the density, again, that triggered this major modification relative to how many manufactured homes are on there. So the original approval, it depends on how you read the original approval that we did, if we approved 56 or 57 homes. It's unclear because there was an existing home which they were gonna leave, and now they're proposing to remove that home. So I'm not sure, you can read that previous staff report both ways, doesn't really matter. This is an increase in density up to 72 homes. And we've gone back and forth and around with the applicant. And for the acreage at 6 acres, at 12 homes per acre, you get to 72. He originally came in with 75. I said, no, that's over the density. We gotta get to 72. That's where we need to be. So we've been working with them with the site plan, and that's the maximum density. So again, this decision is very, very narrow. And while we provide you some information, it's really the top of page 3 when we talk about the space. So in the original criteria, one of the items that's there is space. The minimum size pads or space for each home is 2,500 square feet, provided that the overall density of the park does not exceed 12 units per acre. Each space shall be at least 30 feet wide and 40 feet long in accordance with ORS 446-100C. What I will tell you is that each space is not at least 30 feet wide, but they are all longer than 40 feet. So the dimensions are a little bit different there. Again, working with the building official, he has again preliminarily approved the site plan, and we're waiting for this decision. I don't know that there's a lot more that I would add at this point in time. I'm happy to answer your questions. Again, it's a pretty narrow question and it's really about density. So, the infrastructure has been installed. They're getting ready to pave the road. The question, and maybe the road's been paved, I haven't been out there. If we need to, make any changes to the number of utility connections, we still have the opportunity to do that. And they're ready to site homes and, open a manufactured home park. We got to, well, actually it came in a couple days ago. We got the site plan or the floor plan for the shop. They're repurposing the shop to a laundromat and an office to support the facility. It looks like a really nice reuse of the shop that's on that property. So anyway, I'll turn it back to you. Vice Chair Irons.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
How much space is there between houses?
So, it's 10 feet.
10 feet.
10 feet, yep, that is the standard in the manufactured home dwelling park requirements, is that there has to be a 10-foot minimum.
So not much yard or anything like that.
Yes.
Just the width of the width of the carport, basically.
Yeah, so there's a carport, there's the home, there is some grass and greenery. What's interesting about kind of learning about what the building official's role in this is that on the building permit side, the building official review side of this, there is a very clear open space requirement. And so there's in the upper, it'll be the north, I think it's the northeast corner, they have removed one and shifted a few homes in there a little bit on the plan, I think, as it changed. But they've got a fairly large open space area that will be, it's a requirement. So there will
Like a common area?
Yep, like a common area. They also are required to put certain structures or provide certain amenities in those as well. And again, Stephanie can probably speak to this better than I can because she went to that training. But there are some things that are required under the building the building official review for that. You wanna chime in?
Yeah, it's a per space, minimum square footage requirement. So each additional home that they've added in there has required this play area to get larger.
Sure.
I think it's up here where that easement is, right?
6,600 some square feet, yeah,
Yeah.
on the northwest corner.
And it's the one that.
The northwest corner?
Northwest corner.
Yep, so, lots, 34 and 35, that area, and
Right.
there's actually a city of Boardman easement that runs through there,
Yeah.
so it was, a good spot for it.
So that's right next to, Bella Vista border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is there on-road parking or is it only in their space?
There is not a lot of available on-street parking. I know that one of the views that they provided to the building official did show where parking was available, so. There's a couple places where they've inserted some parking, there's parking at the, shop where that area is, there's about a dozen parking spaces there. And then, there are 2 spaces per unit.
And they're gonna
again,
be, they're gonna,
the applicant can address those questions better than I can as well.
so they'll limit them to 2 vehicles per space or whatever.
Yeah, they will have to manage their parking in there. Again, I think please ask the applicant that question again. Yep.
What was interesting is when we went to that training, finding out how much of a role the building codes, their code, the structural building code is applied to a lot of what we would usually view as a land use issue when it's a single family dwelling or even multifamily dwelling lot. But because it is a manufactured home park, a lot of the minimum standards for open space, parking, streets, everything really falls under the purview of the building codes division. For manufactured home parks, RV parks, and other parks across the state of Oregon.
Is there a reason for that?
That's just
The
how,
way it is?
that's just how it is, yeah, so when you look at, and when we talk about RV parks, like, we generally think of an RV park as, they call it a recreation park. So if they cover RV parks, like we think of an RV park where there's RVs, but also campgrounds fall under that as well, so, they're really kind of all under that same code, and it's interesting how they have a lot of the regulations for a lot of the space requirements and how they utilize it.
Yeah, I think the building codes division wants to see some changes in and just how much they are involved in the regulation of those kinds of facilities, because again. They deal with structures, they don't generally deal with infrastructure.
Sure.
It's just I think it's a historical carryover. I mean, when you go back and look at the kind of some of the original dates of when some of those regulations were written around manufactured home parks and RV parks, they're very old in the sequence of things, and I think it's just been there. And there hasn't been an effort to move it out of them, away from them. And you haven't seen significant manufactured home development park development in Oregon for probably 40 years.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't think of this is 25 years I've been planning, this is the first manufactured home park I've really dealt with from the ground up. So we've had an interesting learning curve on this.
What about for the fire marshal? Have we heard anything from them, whether the increase in buildings is gonna be a problem?
No, we haven't, they were noticed,
That's
haven't
kind of
heard
why I
anything.
brought up the vehicles thing is
That's what I'm
emergency
trying to-
vehicle access and stuff like
But we
that.
made sure, we talked early on about the width of the street, and the street is adequately wide. So we tried to address that concern at the front end, not so we'd have to deal with it at the back end.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, fire access is under the purview of the BCD for that as well. So, for manufactured home parks.
Huh. Well, then hurt to ask the question anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all the same questions that we were asking at the front end too, going, okay, so how do we, well, I think we're fortunate that we were in the same building and work hand in hand with our building official here. So we can navigate through this at the same time, you know, and he'll issue that certificate of occupancy based on his standards, but we know that later on, because we're working cooperatively with him, hopefully that won't cause any compliance issues later, so.
Should have invited him here.
Oh, maybe I could have, he's, yeah.
Was there any additional correspondence assigned your staff report?
There was one email that we received.
Did we leave copies up there for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the email about, it's just a short email at the top of the page. It should have been on your table. It had to do with, a request for the perimeter to have a block fence. You actually can't act on that.
A concrete block fence?
You can't act on that. The permit review is narrow. And that is outside the purview of the review. So while I can appreciate the inquiry and the request, it's outside the purview of what the review is under. So again, the applicant is aware of the email, and he may choose or not choose. I do know they have a fence selection that's a pretty substantial fence, so, again, certainly a question you could ask, but not an item that would be available to amend. The original decision did require a site obscuring fence, perimeter fence. Yep.
Okay. Move on to the applicant.
Sure. So we proposed this project,
Name and address for the record.
hello, everybody, my name is Hardeep Singh, and I'm with Unity Partners. We have a project on 700 West Quincy Lane. Originally, we proposed 57 homes, and now we have decided to increase it to 72 homes. The main reason is that we want to bring affordable housing to Boardman. And that's just talking to different business partners that we work with in the area who are looking for space for their employees to live. So, increased density, reduce per lot cost for us, and then we can pass that cost over to the renters. I've done my research, 3 bedrooms, 2-bedroom apartments in Boardman is somewhere $2,200 per month plus utilities. Our units, we have few units to start with, which is 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath will be $1,850 plus utilities. The second option that we have is a single bed, single bath units. Those are going to be $1,350, including utilities. And when you look at apartment buildings, those are going to be about $1,800 or $1,900 for a single bedroom unit plus utilities. So we're trying to address the affordability part of the equation. And the density, I understand Commissioner Connell has the comment regarding the yard. A lot of these units are kind of towards the people that are coming in. They're young, they're single, and they want a place to live, which they can afford, right? And sometimes they don't care for the yard. We do have units that will have a yard. I believe there is about 12 units that will have a very good yard. So that's kind of like how we've driven this project from the affordability perspective. And we're happy to answer any other questions you have.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, any testimony in support of the application?
Yes, good evening or afternoon. I'm actually in Florida. My name is Joe Morosco, Senior Vice President, Implementation with First Coast Security. I joined in support of Unity Partners project. As some of you may know, we employ approximately 1,300 security officers in that market. Many of which, and we have metrics to support this, many of which simply don't have a place to live that are adequate to their needs for the price point that's being offered through Unity Partners. So we have a classroom environment every week. We employ approximately 50 to 60 people every week. The questions are asked and the information is tendered, and they're all requesting affordable locations. So the need for us in particular and the community is vast. We've been in the market since 2017. I've spent quite a number of months in the Boardman Hermiston area firsthand to see that as it's grown throughout the projects. It's going to continue to grow. We anticipate we'll have upwards of 2,000 officers in the next 24 months. So the need for affordable housing at a price point our officers and employees can afford is tantamount to our success and the community's success for the officers we employ and the community members. I just wanted to make sure we came out in support of this project.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Any other testimony in support? Is there any testimony opposing the application? Hearing none, any neutral testimony? I don't believe there needs to be any rebuttal. So with that, we will close the hearing and move into discussion. Is there a discussion?
No, I'm good. Take the vote.
Okay. Accept the motion.
I need to approve the major modifications. Are 25-0000300.
I'll start.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Layton,
Yes.
Commissioner Carver,
Yes.
Commissioner Irons,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell.
Yes.
Commissioner Tenai.
yes,
Thank you.
Findings will be signed tomorrow, so we should have your notice of decision out within early next week,
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
which means we can move on to the next part.
That's
No
okay.
question.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the replat.
Oh, you have got the other door, sorry.
That's a smart move with the shop, what they're doing with the shop. It's already there. Yep,
Yeah, and the mailboxes will be in there, so people will be able to pull in there.
sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I'm excited, I think it's, I'm just really hoping it's gonna be a smart, so,
And it stays that way.
yes. And I think we have conditions that will
Yeah.
help facilitate that, so, yeah.
Okay, moving on to replat. The public hearing on replat DIV 25-502 is called to order. Oregon Potato Company, owner and Apex applicant. Subject property is described as tax lots 2500 and 2501 of Assessor's Map 4 North, 25 East, 10, and is zoned general industrial. This request is to approve a replat. Criteria are found in the Boardman Development Code, Chapter 4, applications and review procedures. Approval criteria and provisions within 4.3 land divisions and lot line adjustments is being processed as a type 3 decision. Conduct of the hearing. Same sequence of events as last public hearing. We will then close public testimony. After the record is closed for testimony, no other testimony will be heard from anyone unless planning commission has specific questions. If you wish to speak Please fill out a testimony form and submit it to the planner one. I will recognize those wishing to speak. Any questions to be addressed through me, please state your name and address for the record when you come up to the podium. Criteria that apply to the decision are listed in staff report. Testimony on other issues will be rejected, not considered by the planning commission. Failure to raise any issue in sufficient detail will allow planning commission and the parties the ability to respond to the issue, prohibits an appeal of land use board of appeals based on that issue. Similarly, failure to raise constitutional or other issues regarding any conditions of approval in sufficient detail to allow planning commission to respond to the issue prohibits a lawsuit in circuit court on that basis. I ask members of planning commission to disclose any ex parte contacts bias or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and the extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain from the hearing. Hearing none, does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the planning commissioner's impartiality? Hearing none. Aurelia.
Okay.
Good staff report.
Yeah. So this is her first staff report. I'm proud of her because she was asked and willingly said she would do this tonight, so. Thanks to be kind.
Bear with me. So what we have tonight is a application for a replat, to combine two parcels into one. There's one parcel where it's 6.58 acres, one is 3.11 acres. That applicant is Apex, I believe is how you pronounce it, and the owner is Oregon Potato Company. We had just done an approval for a storage, potato storage. I think last planning commission, this is out on tax law 2500 and 2501, assessors map 4 north 2510. The zoning of the area is general industrial, and the property location is on the south side of Columbia Avenue Northeast, between Olson Road and Ullman Boulevard. A little bit about it is the subject property is parcel 1 of the Port of Morrow Food Processing Park. And yeah, they're requesting just to conjoin those two lots, 2500 and 2501. The approval criteria, it has been filed under the City of Boardman Development Code Chapter 4, and the review procedures were 4.3, land divisions and lot line adjustments. All preliminary plots shall be reviewed using approval criteria contained in section 4.3.140. This application is pretty straightforward. It's for a replat, and I think there was like maybe one condition of approval. And one thing in here that I did want to know is the requirement to maintain access. The access is currently available along Columbia Avenue Northeast and will continue. This property is recently reviewed for the development of a potato storage facility, as I mentioned earlier, and has met the requirements of that decision. Another thing, I guess the only condition of approval would be to submit a final plat for review by the city, the county surveyor, and the county assessor. Other than that, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, why are they doing it? Why do they want to do it?
They didn't give us a clear indication as to why, although the potato storage they're putting on that parcel is fairly large.
Barely, it's a monster.
It is huge. I mean, if you've seen the
Yeah.
dirt work they did at the back end of the property, it was pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So I think they're just making sure that the building they build is on a single parcel. They could have built it over that lot line. This is cleaner.
Wasn't there gonna be two buildings? Right? It wasn't one unit or one under one roof, but 4 separate bays or 4
Right,
separate.
multiple bays under
Yeah.
a single, I don't remember the number of bays, but yes, it was a number of storage bays under a single span roof. Mhm.
And during that review, we had some discussion about how this lot back here, basically, there's no road frontage. I mean, it's right along the freeway, so I think that this kind of cleans it up, so that way it's all one property. If there was any accessory building or anything that they may need later, then it would all be joined onto one. They didn't really give us a clear, this is why we're doing it. I think they're just trying to keep it clean because of their existing.
Where did they put all that dirt? Cause they moved a mountain.
Bioswales.
Where? Huh. I mean, they took that whole hill out. Oh, they probably gave it to the rock people.
For the
Yeah,
fire
it was a-
department.
It was a huge amount of,
What'd you do with it? Sam?
they filled in their bioswales.
This isn't a court of law. You can't plead the fifth here.
What,
My decision.
we would point out that, tonight, while we were sitting here, we did notice there are a couple of typos in the staff report in front of you. So property owners were not notified May 7th, 2024. They were notified May 7th, 2025. So we will not have, if you were to approve it tonight, we would have to, do a typographical change on that before you could sign it.
Sam's coming by around 11 tomorrow, so we're good there.
Alrighty.
That's your one get out of jail free card, right there.
There's my one.
Any other questions, staff? Was there any correspondence outside your staff report?
I didn't receive anything.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here?
I don't believe so. Although,
I sent them the invite, and they had called me and asking when the planning commission was, so I don't know if they just couldn't make it today,
there's one name up there, I don't know. So,
So,
is the applicant online? No.
Okay, moving on. Any testimony in support of the application? Any testimony opposing? Neutral testimony. And no rebuttal. Okay. Yeah, close public hearing and go into discussion. Is there any discussion on this replat? Ragnar, you've been quiet.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. We'll accept the motion.
Alright, I move to approve the replat BIV 25-000002 as presented with the date correction.
I said it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Layton,
Yes.
Commissioner Carberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Irons,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
and Commissioner, Fennec.
Yes,
Thank you. Doesn't look like we have any discussion items tonight.
Oh, actually we do,
I'll do it.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll just throw a couple at you.
She does.
I had to really, print my last two, updates to the,
They're the last three pages.
the. So my planning department monthly updates are attached at the back. And I just share that, cause we haven't met for a little bit, so, you'll get the May one for the June meeting, or the June one, which was then just this week, actually. For next meeting. Mostly what I wanna do is just share briefly with you everything that's going on with the strategic planning process, because I can't find myself out of my way out of the box these days, because it's just so crazy busy. Before I headed out, I took a little bit of time off, and did some downtime. We had, the day before I left, we had, or the 2 days before I left, we had, in those, well, actually probably in the 10 days before I left, we had an EOA pack for the economic opportunities analysis. We had a TSP pack, I think. And then we had a Parks Plan, community open house meeting, community meeting. All of these projects are just screaming along. Today, I really haven't shared this with anybody yet. I did about 2 hours with the consultant on the Parks Master Plan. She's asked to just kind of have a little bit of time extension to adoption, and I said, yeah, I think we need that. It's been, the Parks Master Plan was the one that was gonna get done first. I think it's still gonna get done first and get adopted first. It's been an incredible learning experience. I've learned more about parks in the last 8 months than it's been interesting, everything I've learned. And not just parks generally, but parks and Boardman, you know, who uses them, why they use them, who goes there, what the concerns are, what the issues are. Working with the district on this parks plan has been really interesting as well. They have very different interests than the city does. I mean, because we have parks, you know, that have playgrounds and benches and picnic tables, and they have a rec center, and then they have a whole marina down there that kind of has its own world too, with the RV park and all of the amenities. So it's two very different things. And I think the consultant team has done an exceptional job of trying to figure out how to work with both entities, do it well, keep the project moving along. But we're down now to finishing the interim products and then working on the actual Parks Master Plan. The lack of investment in city parks over the past 20 years is real evident. And I think the recommendations and then prioritizing all of the potential projects is gonna be very interesting. There will be a PAC meeting for the Parks Master Plan the end of June. And we'll be looking for the last time at kind of what all of those projects are and those recommendations and what the prioritization will be for that. We probably won't have cost estimates by then, but we will in the final document. I'm a little nervous about what that final, those capital cost estimates are gonna be. I think it's gonna be huge. And the city's gonna have to figure out, you know, truly have to prioritize that and figure out how what the city wants to build into a regular budget, and then, you know, how to fund those kinds of things. Parks are important to people, and I've never been a big user of parks. I've been, you know, in my own life, I've been kind of you know, it's not that I never go to parks, it's just not a thing I do regularly. And it's amazing to me how many people do go to parks regularly. I've been paying a little more attention when I drive by parks and seeing, well, who's there and what are they doing and why are they doing it? In this community, soccer fields and baseball fields are in high demand. We don't have enough, and I don't know that we're even identifying a growth of those two kinds of park assets to meet the growing demand in the community of Boardman. So it's been interesting, the conversations around the Parks Master Plan. The other one the next one that should wrap up about the same time now, it's currently slated to end in September, is the economic opportunities analysis. I think that consultant team is busy on a lot of projects, interestingly enough, in this region. So I keep seeing the same consultant team show up and talking about large data centers everywhere. And of course, when we do our economic opportunities analysis, we're gonna talk about large data centers, because that's just what's going on in the region. And so what does that look like? And if it's not the data center itself, it's inside the city limits, you know, it will be support services for that. But with the EOA, we're also looking at commercial lands, what the industries are. I think that the conversation at the last meeting, we kind of got into some actual what industries are coming, and then what kind of what kind of employment numbers might we attach to some of those industries? So it was very interesting because the date of that meeting was the same day that Good Shepherd announced their plans for Boardman. And so I was able to say those healthcare numbers that you're looking at there, you need to 5 times those, because we're gonna have a medical facility in town. It's gonna be pretty substantial. And so when it comes to, this environment that we're living in with all these things that are happening right now, with the growth that we're seeing, the number of residential developments, and then knowing what some of the conversations are about commercial development here in this core, it's really interesting to think about how different Boardman's gonna look in less than 5 years. I say that just to prepare you guys, because Boardman's gonna look different.
It looks a lot different than it did 5 years ago
Absolutely.
now.
I mean, just the change that we've experienced, since, I think about the time, I worked for the county through the end of 2019, and I think about where Boardman was at that point in time, and now here in 2025. That's just 5.5 years,
Yeah.
and it's a profound difference. The number of homes down on the south side, and I think the commercial activity that's gonna happen in the core here is just gonna continue to grow. And I think the Port of Morrow interchange, as things continue to occur, I think that another point or place of development could be there as well. We have a meeting next month, and we've got a development that'll be on that agenda, and I think there'll be 2 or 3 more meetings before we get to the end of this calendar year, where there'll be other commercial development that we'll be looking at for review. So I guess that's my way of saying buckle up, buttercup, it's gonna get fun. The TSP is on track, to be done by December, by Christmas. We just had our 3rd PAC meeting for that, and it was the solutions. I think the big takeaway from that, and you all are, invited to participate in the joint work session on Tuesday evening with the city council, about the transportation system plan. So my preview to that, and I want you to come and I want you to ask the consultants lots of questions and think about it. But the preview to that is that building or not building an overpass or an underpass at Olson doesn't really do anything to change the demand on Main. So given that the built environment really makes an overpass or an underpass at Olson almost unachievable. I mean, you could do it, but it would be a significant change. It's probably a good thing that it really doesn't drive a real numbers change to Maine. And their proposal is a 4-lane bridge, so that you have 2 through lanes and 2 turn lanes, because of stacking, because of the depth to stack the turn lanes to make the left-hand turns onto the on and off ramps. They're proposing, it needs a 4-lane bridge. I was really surprised, because I was ready for ODOT to just, the whole, no, can't go. They were honest, we don't have the money. We've got 900 years worth of bridge and other work to do in Oregon, and we can add this to the list, but it's a 900-year list.
Yeah, but who's growing faster than we are
Well,
in the state? Not very many people, not very many communities.
but they also, that's not their only factor they look at. Population is the other one, and who has more population than we do?
Population equals tax base.
Right, I wish we could have those conversations.
Yeah.
So we're gonna need to find ways to be creative, and it was a really good conversation. We actually brainstormed some good ideas about how to frame the request. For wherever the request goes to fund these improvements, I think there's ways to frame it to get certain people's attention to potentially help us find the funding to do those kinds of improvements that need to be done. But as much as we have been focused on Main Street, the TSP is really addressing all of the community. So it really is looking at making sure we have good connections into and between residential developments, looking at what our functional classifications are relative to the roads in town. we've been talking about Oregon Trail and I finally said, look, Oregon Trail is eventually gonna connect from at least Paul Smith, if not Scobo at some point in time, all the way to Laurel Lane. And it is interesting to look at what some of the developments that are happening, in that realm. And it's like, well, when that development happens, they're gonna build a part of Oregon Trail. We're building a part of Oregon Trail now with the current project that we're doing. It's like, well, how difficult is it then to connect this part to this part? And so I think Oregon Trail from here to Baylor is probably something that's gonna happen in the next couple of years. Just based on the development that's happening. So it's interesting to see how these things happen. So the TSP, as much as we are so micro focused on Maine and the interchange and what needs to happen there, the TSP really is addressing the whole of Boardman. And that's important to remember. And then the last thing we're working on is the comprehensive plan development code update. We had Stephanie joined me and we had a project management team update with the consultants today. And that project is moving along. We're gonna be, that wraps up probably April, May of next year. So about a year left on that project. There will be another community event. There was a community event back on May 3rd. We learned a lot about community engagement. We actually learned a lot about community engagement through the Parks Master Plan process. But with the comprehensive plan development code update, we're looking at probably late August. A series of kind of little mini workshops, bring people together, go through a scenario planning thing, and do that multiple times with different groups. So that's coming soon. Our comprehensive plan is gonna look wholly different when they're done, and it's kind of an exciting thing to think about. I've always been kind of this traditionalist, talk about each of the goals, and they're actually kind of pulling them into 4 concept areas. A little bit different way to look at it, and it's gonna be interesting, and I'm actually very excited about working through that process. On the housing side of things, the state is actually wrapping up their rulemaking. They're actually rolling out the grant process for people who want to apply for grants. To begin to implement the new housing rules, and that money would deploy probably after January. So I think we're gonna gear up to do self-funding it, but start working on it's always been called a housing needs analysis. Now they've changed the name, the terminology. It's gonna be a housing capacity analysis. So I think we're gonna actually start that come January, give or take. So we'll be working towards appointing a path for that and then working to get the consultants on board. We know who we're gonna use. We already have an agreement, an understanding with them. We just need to actually write a scope and know what we're gonna do and get that kicked off in January. Based on the outcome of the TSP, the other item that will probably engage after the first of the calendar year will be an update to the Main Street IAMP. We'll have a lot of really good data from the TSP, and the IAMP, of course, is the TSP looks at the city as a whole, the IAMP looks at a very narrow area. And so we'll probably take what we learned from the TSP and update the IAMP so that they are then in sync with each other, rather than having a new TSP with a IAMP from 2009. I mean, it's, what is that, 16 years old now? So, for many years with the IMP, we didn't see the growth. We weren't seeing the triggers, and now we're seeing the triggers come kind of almost rapid fire. So that, I just want you guys to kind of know where things are at. We haven't talked about these for a while. For those of you that are attending, I think who all is, David's on something.
Yeah.
You've been to a couple items. Jennifer, you were at a recent meeting.
I forgot where I am.
I don't remember, but your name's on something. So
Not participating evidently.
Parks, let's see, your parks,
Yeah.
David is transportation, you're on the EOA. I think you're on the comprehensive plan development code one.
I think so.
Yes, so June 20. No, is that right? June 25th, maybe? You'll get an email invite, so. That's really, happy to answer any questions you guys have, but We just haven't met for a while. I just wanna kind of give you a sense of
Are
where.
they giving you any kind of idea what it's gonna cost for that 4-lane bridge? Or just a rough, obviously,
We'll get that before we're all done, but ballpark number that got thrown around when we had the PAC meeting was $50 million.
yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. The county is doing an IAMP for the Tower Road interchange. They're gonna do deck work next year on the Tower Road interchange. They're just gonna fix the pavement from
Right,
ramp to ramp across the bridge. That's all they're gonna do. The IAMP that they're doing out there is looking at what they really need to, what that needs to be improved to, including the overpass over the Union Pacific on the north side, because you're not gonna, the port and the farm own about 2,500 acres north of the freeway. That until they have a bridge over the main line, they really can't develop, because you can't have the type of traffic that would happen with a at-grade crossing of the main line. So part of that IMP is envisioning that overpass extending to go over the UP main line and then connect down into that property. That improvement is probably 50 plus.
and that's hard work too, because that's all rock. I mean, it's
Mhm.
nothing but rock out there. They think it's hard on the south side, that north side, like they did in Arlington, or the Arlington Hefner Ione exit. All that work they did over there was nothing but rock, solid rock.
Yep, you might as well mine it.
Yep,
Yeah, so, and then there's the improvements, so at the Port of Morrow interchange, we did an update to that IMP here a couple years ago. That improvement is not as expensive. The north side is just the implementation of the roundabout, several $1 million. I mean, and I don't wanna downplay that, but in comparison, it's fairly inexpensive. There are improvements that also need to happen on the south side. Laurel needs to be, that corner needs to be smooth and the grade needs to be addressed. There's some other things there. I mean, that interchange is probably 8 million plus minus maybe 10. You put them all together and you're probably at $150 million of improvements in 3 interchanges here in Morrow County.
yeah.
So anyway,
So bake sale's out of the question.
well, it'd be pretty expensive cupcakes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's really all I have. I just wanted to provide that update. Thank you.
Is there any public comment?
No, Mr. Layton is in the audience tonight. I guess what I would add, I know that Mr. and Mrs. Layton are patiently waiting for us to make some changes to the development code around shipping containers. Yvonne Navarro is also patiently waiting for us to make very similar changes. A portion of that in the residential zone, a portion of that in the commercial and industrial zone. We have started that process. We're working through the draft language. It is an amendment to the development code. It's one of there's probably a half dozen amendments that we're gonna start moving through the development code that are all just kind of minor amendments. But we really need to make them before we get to the point where we're actually updating the code. It'd be nice to put all this stuff off and just have it happen as part of the development code update. But we can't do that. There are things we need to address now. And so we're working through that process. And I guess just to add to your workload, you're gonna have a lot of plans to review and adopt over the next year, but you're gonna have a lot of minor code amendments that are gonna start on your way too, so.
Commission comments?
Good.
I say we adjourn.
I second that.
Good job. We did it in an hour and I even talked for a while, so. Wanna hit the recording? Okay, yeah.